Welcome to X Confessions Unlocked, where lies, betrayal, and truth collide. Kindly subscribe so you don't miss any of this. We share new stories daily. Stick around and unlock the drama. Now, let's get into today's story. It was a Thursday evening, the kind where the house felt a little too quiet and the TV had been humming in the background for hours just to make it feel less dead. I had come home late from work. Nothing dramatic, just one of those "can you stay a bit longer?" requests from my boss that translated to "we need you to pick up the slack for Jim, who left early again." So I did, because that's what I do. I show up. I stay late. I take care of things. She didn't even look up when I walked in. My ex-wife, though at the time she was still technically my wife, was sprawled on the couch, her phone glowing in her hand like it was the only source of light in the universe. Some reality show was on in the background, all glitter and yelling and people throwing drinks. The irony didn't hit me until later. I said, "Hey." She mumbled something back. That's how we communicated lately. Through grunts and shrugs and an unspoken agreement that pretending was easier than talking. I went into the kitchen to heat up whatever leftovers were in the fridge, and that's when it started. She asked if I had picked up the dry cleaning. No, I said. I didn't even know it was ready. And that was it. The match. The fuse. She exploded like she had been holding in a full speech for days, just waiting for the cue. "You're useless," she yelled, storming into the kitchen like it was her courtroom. "You don't listen. You don't care. You never do anything right. I deserve someone better." There was a time when that sentence would have cut me in half. Years ago, maybe, back when I was still trying to impress her. Still chasing her approval like a dog waiting for a treat. But that night, after all the little digs and sighs and icy silences, we had been slowly carving each other down for months. I felt nothing but tired. I stared at her, really looked at her. The person I had once begged to be with. The person I thought I couldn't live without. And I said, "You do." Then I reached into my work bag, pulled out the manila folder I'd been carrying for 3 days, and handed her the divorce papers. No theatrics. No yelling. No dramatic music swelling in the background. Just a quiet kind of finality, like when a store closes early and locks the door. Her mouth open like she was going to keep screaming, but no words came out. She looked at the papers like I had just handed her a live grenade. "You're not serious," she said. "I am. You're just doing this to get back at me." "No, I'm doing this because I'm done." She didn't cry. That part surprised me. She just stood there, stunned, like she'd never considered I might one day stop trying. I slept on the couch that night. Not because I had to, but because I wanted space. The bed felt too personal, too shared. I woke up to the sound of her crying in the bathroom the next morning, but I didn't get up to comfort her. Instead, I got dressed, left for work early, and emailed my lawyer to confirm everything was moving forward. The next 3 weeks were peaceful in that eerie way after a storm. She stayed in the guest room, barely spoke to me unless it was to ask something practical. It felt like living with a stranger, and honestly, it was easier than pretending we still had anything to say. Then she left, took a weekend bag and a few boxes of clothes, and said she needed space. I said okay. She didn't ask me to fight for her, and I didn't offer. And then came the real storm. 3 weeks after she left, I started getting calls from my mom. Then her mom. Then my brother. Then her cousin. All the same flavor of message. She's really upset. She's saying this was all a misunderstanding. She thinks maybe you two just need to talk. She's saying you're being stubborn. I hadn't told anyone we were separating. I didn't want the drama. I didn't want to be the guy who vents to the whole family only to make up 2 weeks later like nothing happened. But apparently, she did. And she painted herself as the wounded party. She called my mom and told her I blindsided her, that I gave up, that I must be having a midlife crisis. Which, by the way, if this is my midlife crisis, I'd say I'm handling it with grace. I didn't say much to anyone. Just, "Yeah, we're done. Please don't get involved." But of course they did, because people love a story, especially the kind where they think they can fix it. My mom suggested therapy. Her mom asked me if I'd at least hear her out. Her sister texted me a Bible quote about forgiveness. I don't even think she knows which religion I actually follow. I blocked her on Instagram when I saw she posted some vague, passive-aggressive quote about real love doesn't walk away when things get hard. It had a black and white photo of a couple holding hands in the rain. Classic. A few days later, I got a text from her. Just one sentence. "Can we talk?" I stared at it for a while. Not out of emotion. Just curiosity. I didn't respond. That night, I got an email from her. She had written a full essay. And I mean that literally multiple paragraphs, references to our early days, memories, apologies, things she realized since leaving. It was heartfelt, I'll give her that, but also felt strategic. like she was trying to sell me something. An image of who she thought I wanted her to be. There was no mention of the dry cleaning, or the way she yelled at me, or the years of resentment she unloaded like clockwork every few months. Just vague lines about miscommunication and how she missed the little things. She didn't miss me. She missed the version of me that bent over backwards. The one who absorbed her moods like a sponge. The one who turned every insult into a mission to improve himself. That version of me doesn't live here anymore. I didn't respond to the email either. I archived it, didn't delete it, because part of me wanted to remember how it felt to finally not take the bait. A week later, she showed up at my parents' house. Apparently just passing by. My mom called me after, a bit shaken. "She really seems lost," she said. "Are you sure this can't be worked out?" I said yes. Not out of anger. Just certainty. Because the truth is, I've never felt more calm in my life. Not happy exactly. Not yet. But clear. And clarity, after years of noise, feels like sunlight after too many gray winters. Part of me knows she'll keep trying. Not because she loves me, but because she can't stand not being in control. Because I was the one thing she could count on. And now I'm gone. Maybe in her version of the story, I'm the villain. The quitter. The cold one. But I know the truth. I didn't leave. I just finally stopped waiting for her to show up. And I'm not sorry for that. I saw her again, in person, for the first time since she left. It wasn't planned. It wasn't some dramatic doorstep confrontation either. Just life, I guess. We crossed paths at the grocery store. The same chain we'd gone to every Sunday for years. Back when grocery trips were still something we did together. Her comparing prices like a bloodhound, and me sneaking snacks into the cart when she wasn't looking. I was in the self-checkout lane, buying eggs and toothpaste, when I felt someone behind me. You know that weird sixth sense? Like your skin recognizes someone before your brain does? I turned around, and there she was, holding a single basket with wine and overpriced hummus, looking like she'd spent an hour picking the right outfit to look casual. She smiled. I didn't. "Hey," she said. I nodded. That was it. "You look good," she added, like it was a peace offering. I didn't answer, because I did look good, and not for her. I dropped 10 pounds, started running again, even started shaving properly instead of that lazy, patchy stubble she used to complain about. I looked like a guy who got his house back, who started sleeping better, who remembered how silence could be comforting instead of cold. She waited a beat, then said, "Can we talk?" I scanned my last item, paid, bagged my stuff, and said, "No," without looking up. And I walked out. I thought that would be the end of it. Spoiler, it wasn't. The next day, I got a knock on the door. Not hers. Her mom. Now, I've never hated her mom. She's actually a kind woman. Dramatic, sure, with a flair for the guilt trip, but genuinely warm. She used to bring over banana bread and ask if I was hydrating enough. I never expected her to show up uninvited, but there she was, holding a tin of cookies like it was a Trojan horse. "I just want to talk," she said. "Please." I let her in. I don't know why. Maybe out of habit. Maybe because she wasn't the one who screamed at me and told me I was useless. She sat on my couch and looked around like she was seeing the place for the first time, even though she'd been here dozens of times. "It's cleaner," she said. I shrugged. Less chaos, less clutter. She gave a small smile, then got to it. "She's sorry, you know." I didn't answer. "She's been crying a lot. Can't sleep. She says she regrets everything." I didn't answer that either. "She thought you'd never actually leave, that you'd always stick around. And now she doesn't know who she is without you." That one made me laugh. Not loud. Not cruel, just that dry, hollow kind of laugh that comes out when something's both sad and stupid. She didn't seem too worried about that when she called me useless. Her mom flinched just slightly. She says it was the heat of the moment. I finally look her in the eye. That moment lasted 5 years. She nodded slowly. I know, that surprised me. I think part of me expected denial. The whole "you're both to blame" thing. But she didn't say that. She just sat there, quiet, hands folded in her lap. "She doesn't expect you to take her back," she said. "But she's hoping you'll at least forgive her." And that word, forgive, it landed like a stone in my stomach. Because I had, in my own way. Not for her. For me. I wasn't holding on to anger. I wasn't plotting revenge. I didn't hate her. I just didn't want her in my life anymore. "I already have," I said. "That doesn't mean I want her back." Her mom nodded again. Then she left. Quietly. No more cookie tins after that. Over the next few days, the text started again. From her. Not long paragraphs this time, just short ones. Like she was afraid of scaring me off. "Thinking of you. Miss your cooking. Wish we could go back." I didn't answer. Then she sent a photo of a park bench. Our bench from years ago, where we used to go when we first started dating. Back when things were easy and new. The caption just said, Remember? Of course I remembered. But nostalgia isn't a time machine. It's just a filter. It softens the edges and blurs the bad parts. Makes you forget how things actually felt. What that photo didn't show was the last time we sat there. Her on her phone the whole time, me pretending not to care. Neither of us said more than 5 words. That was the real memory. Eventually, I replied. Just once. I remember. I also remember you telling me I was dead weight. So, no thanks. I didn't block her. I just muted the thread. Let her words float into the void. It felt strange, this version of myself. Calm, detached, but not cold. Just done. Like I'd finally turned off a leaky faucet that had been dripping so long I forgot it wasn't normal. I started focusing on my own life more. I fixed up the house. Nothing big, just little things that made it mine again. New curtains, new sheets. Tossed out every coffee mug she'd bought that had some passive-aggressive quote on it. Started cooking real meals. Not because anyone was watching, but because I deserved to eat well too. One night, a friend invited me out for drinks. Not a wild night. Just beers and darts at a dive bar. I hadn't been out in months, and I almost said no. But then I remembered how often I used to cancel things because she didn't feel like being social, and how I'd start to shrink myself down just to keep the peace. So I said yes. It was a good night. Laughs. Cheap beer. Real conversation. No walking on eggshells. Nobody rolling their eyes mid-sentence. And then something funny happened. I didn't think about her once. I came home, kicked off my shoes, and realized I hadn't had a single flashback or ache or urge to check my phone. It was like my brain finally gave itself permission to move on. A few days later, I got another message. This one was longer. She said she was going to therapy, that she was learning how her childhood trauma made her lash out, that she realized she never really knew how to love someone without controlling them, that she wished she'd seen me for who I was instead of trying to make me into someone else. I believed her. I also didn't care. That's the part no one tells you. Sometimes the apology comes. Sometimes it's sincere. But by the time it arrives, you've already left the building. You're outside, keys in hand, locking the door behind you. I didn't write back. I didn't need closure. I had it. She sent one more message a week later. I still love you. I stared at it. Thought about all the ways I could respond. All the clever, final, cutting things I could say. Then I put my phone down, made a sandwich, and went to bed. Because love isn't enough. Not when it's laced with contempt. Not when it's used like a leash. Not when it takes years off your life and calls it devotion. She loved the version of me that tolerated everything. But I love this version of me more. And he's not going back. The messages stopped for a while after that. I figure she got the hint, or maybe she was just too embarrassed to keep trying. Either way, I didn't miss it. Silence had become a gift. You don't realize how loud someone else's expectations are until they're gone. The sighs, the constant low-level disappointment, the subtle digs dressed up as jokes. That whole frequency just vanished from my life. And in the quiet, I started hearing myself again. There was this Saturday morning, I was standing in my kitchen, drinking coffee, and I just stood there for like 10 minutes. No phone, no news, just the sun coming through the blinds and the weird little hum the fridge makes. And I remember thinking, this is what peace feels like. But of course, peace never lasts long when other people still think they have a say in your life. It started with a text from my cousin, Rachel. She's one of those cousins you only see at weddings and funerals, but who still insists you're basically siblings. Hey, heard about the divorce. Just saw something weird. Call me. I called. Apparently, my ex had dinner with my mom. Yep, my mother. The same woman who once told me, I never quite understood what she saw in you, during one of her wine-fueled honesty binges. That woman. She said she's trying to make things right. Rachel said that she still believes you two are meant to be. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my coffee. My mom, in typical fashion, didn't call me to mention any of this. I had to bring it up when I visited her the following weekend. Why are you having dinner with Jesse? I asked straight out. She shrugged, poking at her garden salad like it had wronged her. She reached out. She seemed remorseful. She cheated, Mom, and treated me like trash for years. What exactly are you hoping to accomplish here? She had the nerve to say, people grow. Maybe she needed to lose you to realize your worth. That's beautiful, I said. Put it on a mug. My mom didn't laugh. Neither did I. It was about that time my dad called me too, which was rare enough on its own. He's a man of few words and even fewer phone calls. He didn't waste time. She came to the store. He owns a small hardware shop on the edge of town. She used to hate going there. Said it smelled like rust and broken dreams. She said she wanted to help. He continued. Help with what? I asked, already cringing. Said she wanted to buy something for you. Tools. Said you were fixing things now. Jesus Christ. He sighed. Look, I told her to leave. Politely. Then less politely. At least someone still had a spine. The next day, I got an email. Not a text. Not a DM. A full email. Subject line, for what it's worth. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. Part of me wanted to delete it. The bigger part of me was just curious. Like watching the last few seconds of car crash. It was long. Way too long. 3 pages of typed-out reflection. She talked about how empty her new apartment felt. How no one laughed at her terrible puns the way I used to. How she started volunteering at an animal shelter and thought of me when the dogs barked too loud and no one else seemed to care. What was that even supposed to mean? She included a few lines about how her therapist said she had control issues rooted in fear of abandonment, and how she finally understood that love meant letting someone be their full self, not just a version you're comfortable with. Honestly, it sounded like she was reading directly from a therapy workbook. I didn't respond, not because I was angry, but because I didn't want to give her the illusion that this was still some ongoing dialogue, that we were still somehow connected. We weren't. Not anymore. And just when I thought she'd finally retreat, she dropped the last bomb. She contacted my sister. Now, my sister isn't one for dramatics. She's the most chill person I know. Wore combat boots under her wedding dress. Calls her kids tiny gremlins with genuine affection. So when she texted me, "What the hell is Jessie doing at my yoga class?" I nearly choked. She said she just happened to be there, my sister later told me. But come on, that studio's on the other side of the city. I asked her how she handled it. Told her to stretch somewhere else. Bless her. But the kicker was what she said on her way out, apparently. I just want him to know I'm still fighting for us. Still fighting. As if this was a Nicholas Sparks movie and not just her refusing to accept the consequences of her own actions. I felt tired. Not angry. Not hurt. Just tired. So, finally I wrote back. Not to the email, but in a separate message. I wanted it to be clean. Final. Unmistakable. Here's what I said. Jessie, I appreciate that you're doing the work now. That you're going to therapy. That you're trying to understand yourself. I really do. I hope it helps you. I hope you grow from it. But we're done. Not because I'm bitter. Not because I want to punish you. But because I've changed too. I'm not that man anymore. The one who waited for your approval. The one who kept shrinking just to fit inside the space you allowed me. You were right. I do deserve someone better. And I'm finally treating myself like someone worth being kind to. She didn't respond. And for the first time since the day she screamed in my face and slammed the door, I knew I wasn't waiting for anything. I wasn't hoping she'd finally understand. I wasn't praying she'd say sorry the right way. I had said what needed saying. Not for her. For me. Weeks went by after I sent that message. No replies. No surprise visits. No third-hand guilt trips from distant relatives. It was weird. You spend so long waiting for the next shoe to drop that when the silence finally comes, it feels unnatural. Like standing in the eye of a storm and wondering if it's really over or just pausing to catch its breath. But it stayed quiet. I kept waking up early, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I started running again. Not far, not fast, but it was mine. The air, the motion, the rhythm of my feet hitting the ground without anyone tracking my pace or critiquing my posture. That kind of freedom is subtle, but when you've been without it long enough, you notice it in everything. Then one Friday night, I was out with a couple of friends from work. We grabbed a few beers, nothing wild. Just decompressing, talking about terrible bosses and worse coffee. One of the guys, Jordan, brought up relationships. He was going through something with his girlfriend, and someone asked me if I ever regretted not trying harder with Jessie. No, I said, before even thinking. The table got quiet for a beat. I shrugged. There's a difference between giving up and recognizing it's not worth the fight anymore. I didn't walk away because I couldn't do it. I walked away because I finally realized I didn't have to. They nodded. Jordan even said something like, "Man, that's heavy, but in a good way." And I meant it. Every word. A few days later, I got a text from Jessie. It was short. I've accepted it now. I'm sorry it took me so long. I stared at it for a while. Not because it hurt. Honestly, it didn't, but because of how anticlimactic it felt. I didn't reply. There was nothing else that needed to be said. I think some part of her expected this to be a full circle moment. Like we'd go our separate ways, do some soul searching, and then meet again as better, healed people who could fall in love all over again. But life isn't a rom-com. Sometimes you just get better apart. Sometimes the most romantic thing you can do for yourself is to end a story you know is slowly killing you. I started dating again, carefully, not rushing anything, not trying to fill some emotional void. just exploring, meeting people, being honest about what I'd been through and what I wouldn't tolerate again. It felt good to set boundaries without guilt, to not have to defend my choices like I was on trial every damn day. A while back, I ran into one of Jesse's old friends. Amy, I think her name was. She was at the grocery store, juggling 2 toddlers and a pack of cereal. We made small talk, polite and shallow. She looked at me and said, "She misses you, you know." I nodded. "I know, but I don't miss her." She didn't know what to say to that. It wasn't mean, just true. I've realized that's the real shift. I don't need to package my feelings up nicely for other people's comfort anymore. I don't owe anyone the performance of regret. I could just be honest. And honestly, I'm happier now. Not wildly euphoric. Not skipping down sidewalks with a grin. Just solid, grounded, comfortable in my own life again. My apartment has stayed clean for longer than I care to admit. I've picked up reading again, and I've been helping my neighbor fix up this old Mustang he's rebuilding in his garage. Turns out I'm decent with a wrench when no one's micromanaging me. There's a quiet pride in choosing yourself, not in a self-help book kind of way. Not some Instagram meme style, love yourself first mantra. Just knowing what you want, what you won't tolerate, and who you're not going to be anymore. Jessie thought I was useless. Maybe she still does. But I'm not here to change her mind. I'm here, living a life she doesn't get to be a part of anymore. And that's the best ending I could have written. For both of us.